Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome to the People Over Prompts podcast. This is a place where we're going to talk about the future of work in the age of AI. And I'm your host here, and I will be just about every episode. My name's Brian Milner. And today I have a friend that I've asked to come on to share this conversation with me. Mr. Scott Dunn is with us. Welcome in, Scott.
Hey, Brian. I'm glad that I've reached friend status now, so that's nice. You can be professional. By the way, that's a dope intro. I really like that. I was kind of getting into it.
Thanks. Yeah,
Really,
hey,
it's
nice
really
groove,
good.
right?
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, if you're joining us here, we're brand new. We've just started this thing, and as I said in the intro here, we're hoping to talk about kind of how this AI thing changes how we work. We're not AI experts. We're not people here who are going to give you the latest skills and prompts and things to put into a Claude MD file or anything. We're here to talk about kind of the process around it and how this changes how teams put together work and how they use this and what happens and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to have Scott on. Scott is a fellow certified Scrum trainer like I am. And we've talked multiple times on my previous podcast, the Agile Mentors podcast, on different aspects of Scrum and Agile. But in this brave new world, we wanted to kind of focus for a minute and just stop down on the idea of team. And really, I've heard a lot of conversation about this. I've heard a lot of snippets back and forth about AI being a team member. And that's kind of the big core question I wanted us to wrestle with, Scott, through this episode was, is AI really on the team? So I think probably a good place to start with that is, what is a team? If you were to answer that question, how would you at its core kind of say, well, this is what a work team actually is?
Right. So, by the way, I was chewing on these questions quite a bit. I think this is one for those folks listening. This is not an easy one, and I'm glad Brian brought it up because I've danced around it a bit. Because for me, we would commonly say like we compare and contrast. Team is different from a collection of individuals, or for me, it was always about this isn't my work, it's our work. Do you watch people chip in to get things done? Do you avoid the situation of knowledge silos that if Jerry's not here, things fall apart? If only we could clone Jerry. These are the classic problems we struggle with. So that's where there's an aspect of team that I thought Scrum did such a great job of a shared goal. We share knowledge, we help each other out. The work's made visible so we can pair on things. We make decisions together on how we work. We make decisions on the way to approach and tackle the work. So all that becomes really powerful. And we watch teams just light up, right? So lots of times we get companies asking for help, like the team, they don't seem empowered. They're not taking initiative. Can you help us with motivation? All those things. For me, a lot of it came back to team. Now, the default, I think is interesting, Brian, that you made me think of is, wow, AI has all these powerful abilities, including one of the most obvious ones that people are focused on now is it can create code, and the quality's gone up significantly. So it's a given now that we would use that. And that's usually the most expensive part of your project is the software engineering. So I understand there's money to be saved. I understand that they say it can work 24/7, that it'll never sue you, all that kind of stuff. There's obviously a lot of drawbacks too that people could point to. It'll hallucinate, it'll expose security flaws, it'll tell you what you want to hear, all that too. But come back to what you just said about team. It does seem to be the default of, oh, it's a team member. I've literally seen this written down multiple times. But the problem is if Claude makes a mistake and puts something out in production it shouldn't have, do we hold it accountable? Is this, how do you work with that? I think when you bring up this aspect of team, what we're not stopping is there's a productivity thing with AI. It's solid, no doubt. But it's almost like if you look at it, team as sociology, we don't do that. And I think that's where people don't refactor. How do we work now with AI? They simply say, I'm going to use AI to do this task. And then it explodes. And it's almost like the Dunning-Kruger effect that its ability is surpassing our understanding of how we work as a team because we don't think about it much. And most teams aren't probably really retrospecting at that level. And I get it. I'm not even like, that's not even a blame, but it's clear that this power outstrips us. And you can go back through time that plenty of time technology has advanced beyond people's ability to make smart choices with it. I think there's a lot of simple ones. People like that, like why we caution people about using a chainsaw for the first time, why we worry about our kids driving at the beginning, because the kids are so confident. I got this. But the insurance company says no, that you don't. I feel it's the same, Brian, because it's aspect of how do we work with AI as a team, not individual, because that's going to make it just a multiplier messier. Does deserve some kind of reflection and some thought work of people to kind of step back and say that. What do we think about team for sure?
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up the word sociology because I absolutely agree. This is a sociology problem. And I think that this is, the question I've been kind of wrestling with is about the metaphor, basically. Like we have this concept of a team, and I mean, let me just historically take people back a little bit. If we think about, like, if you're not familiar, there used to be a way of doing work called waterfall, where you'd sequentially do big chunks of things. Where you do all your analysis, you do all your design, right? You kind of do in kind of phases. And it's important to understand that, we talk about this in class, that like that came out of the Industrial Revolution, and it came out of assembly line production, because that's how you built cars, automobiles. That's how you built anything on the assembly line. Was you'd move the thing down the assembly line, and there'd be different specialists along the way that would do things. I know I'm going a long way for this, but
The young
stick
people
with
don't
me.
know this. The young listeners aren't aware. They've never.
Right. Right. So when we transitioned over into doing agile ways of working, the whole concept there was, well, we're basing the way we work on an old method that is not really what we're doing now. So it was a fundamental reassessment of the premise. The premise previously was, I'm trying to build the same thing over and over again. And Agile said, wait a minute, we're not doing that. We're not building the same thing over and over again. We're inventing new things every time. We're building new collaboration works, right? We're building new products every time. So we need a process that enables us to build new things in a efficient, effective manner that's got high quality. So that's Agile enters the scene from that. But now I feel like we're at this new inflection point where it's not that we're not building new things, we're building new things, but the premise of which we set up things like Scrum was based on a team of humans who were coming together to build this product. And it was meant to solve and handle the problems that came from a team of humans trying to build stuff, communication issues, shared knowledge and understanding, right? All the things that would be like the hurdles, the dependencies between people, all those things would be hurdles were based on the fact that this is a team of humans doing it. And I feel like, and Scott, maybe you disagree with me, or maybe you'll agree with me, but I feel like we're at this third inflection point to say, well, now we have to fundamentally reassess what we're doing again, because it's not the same team of humans. It's not 8 to 10 people who are having trouble communicating between other humans. It is 2 to 3 humans, and each one having 5, 6, I don't know, 10 agents that they're using. And the communication problems, the dependencies, all those things that were problems between humans, it's not to say that they're not similar problems, but they're different problems. They present in different ways, and therefore I believe the solutions, the practices have to adjust and adapt to be not between humans, but between agents, or humans that are orchestrating different sets of agents now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as humans, as for those who aren't aware, we definitely on the psychological side have a preference for familiar over novel, right? The brain will pay attention to novel stuff in terms of does this help me for survival, but by and large we gravitate. And we need to look I just came up with someone joking about, man, they have to actually write a letter, get an envelope, fold it up, put a stamp, write the address. Why? Because back in the day, that's how if we wanted to exchange a message with someone, that's how we would send that. We don't we don't obviously the default of what I get in the mail is not personal letters anymore. I'm getting those via email and text. Yeah, we have this whole infrastructure built up around we need all these things to deliver messages to people. Like, well, I don't know. or whenever something kind of replaces the need for that. A friend was just telling me how they had bought their first house, had a little slot in the back of the house for the milkman to put the milk into, and they could open and shut it. Like someone had access to your house to put milk in, but that's not how we get. You don't have milk delivered anymore. You can, well, I guess you could now. We went back. We go to the grocery store now. It is being delivered again. But all those things I say, I don't think we reevaluate. I was kind of going back through because you got me thinking like what stays the same. I think a team still has a goal, and those agents would have a goal, and we've heard that's really important. I think we still deal with complex problems. So it's the idea of let's stop and talk about how it's going on this complex thing. Like you just said, we're not doing in manufacturing, we're doing complex stuff that can change a lot. I think I think the idea of a team coming together with that storming, forming, norming, performing probably looks different because now there's other aspects of it. We've never really had truly some kind of a robotic thing doing the work as part of our team necessarily. The one that really stuck out to me is the satire change curve because it's obviously is throwing in something very new. So where we are at 2 years ago to where we probably are going to be in 1 or 2 years, radically different. But you and I would both advocate, yeah, because that's such a change. You need feedback loops. You need to do retrospectives. And I think one thing that jumped out is does the team stop and actually think about their working agreement in terms of what they do with agents? Because so one thing that jumps out that we've talked about on my team, because one of our guys is a he's our technical coach, so he does the certified Scrum developer trainings. That your juniors are not going to learn by pairing with the seniors if the seniors are busy spinning up agents and that's their new job is orchestration of agents. So they will struggle. Or anytime, I've already seen this numerous times. You hire someone new or there's a junior and hey, take a look at the code and you make the change like, well, how's this all work? Like, I don't know. AI built it. So there's a lack of understanding. And they even said you could run katas to say, we're going to take a piece of the code that AI developed and who can explain it? Because it's the learning gets lost. I can have AI do stuff that I don't understand how it works. Just like in the old day, you could work on your car, and now like I don't know. It's a check engine light, right? I can't. I'm helpless in some ways. I think it's similar, but management would still expect us to understand why it is or isn't working. Management still expect us to deliver on time and with quality, but we have whole parts like I don't know why it's doing that. Yes, it got done faster. That's almost like we were talking recently as a team, immediate gratification over long term. Can it develop the code? Great. We can fill it out. What about total cost of ownership in 6 months, 9 months? Right. So I think those are the inherent challenges as a team sense of ownership and the shared understanding of this thing that they say they've built or delivered, even if it used AI, right? That's fine. But there's inherent expectations on the team with that I think we're just skipping right over almost back to we've cranked out a lot of lines of code. Is it scalable? Not sure. Is it is it now we can write other agents to check some of that, but I don't think it's the humans now. That idea of human in the loop is kind of lost. But if we could step back as a working agreement and say, let's just stop for a moment. Should we, if the default is push the gas pedal down, use AI as much as you can, is that really what we need right now? That might be the long-term goal, maximize AI. But if it costs us things like team cohesion, collective ownership, shared understanding. Maybe we slow it down. Maybe actually limit the number of agents we use right now. Maybe you intentionally pair a junior and a senior on while spinning up the agent. You know what I mean? Like, but no one's giving a thought. We're back to the experts just going to use AI. And I know I can name a company that it's almost like a pride issue where the most senior person in AI is just killing it, like all the stuff. While whole team members have no idea what to do. He's not busy helping them get going. He's actually kind of have this pride, like, yeah, well, I know Claude pretty well. That's not good long term, right? But that's just
Yeah.
kind of running amok, and they're not truly self managing. You know what I mean? They're not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I, I
troublesome.
think there's lazy management going on, and I'm
It's
sorry,
true.
managers out there. I'm sorry,
It's true.
leaders. Like I'm not saying you're all this way. Trust me, but I think that I think we could all agree that there is some lazy managing going on out there to just say, I've gotten used to the way I manage a team, and this is the way I manage a team. And now this new thing's popping up. Well, great. Hey, this new person over here knows how to do this stuff. I'm going to let them just run with it. And it's not that we don't want to encourage that, but we have to remind ourselves, I think, that there's some fundamental best practices that we've learned. And, it gets back to, did you learn the practice or did you learn the purpose behind the practice?
Yeah,
And if
true,
you don't really
true.
understand why you're doing that practice, then they're not going to fit and you're not going to be able to adapt it because you don't really understand why you're doing it in the first place. And that gets back to this fundamental reassessment of our team, because if our team is now structured differently, And we have this problem with, now the senior people are more valued because, if I'm a senior developer and I can now be an orchestrator because I can vet the code of these different agents because there's a code quality problem that comes from this, and we need the human at the moment to kind of vet that and still be able to keep the quality standards high. Well, if I dump all my junior engineers, then you're right, we're going to have this HR problem at a certain point where now we have a gap because we don't have anyone coming up who can replace those senior engineers when they're gone or they move up to another organization or anything. And it's a short-term thing. I think that I heard one person talking about this recently, and I'll see if I can put the name in the show notes because I want to give the guy credit, but I just forgot his name off the top of my head. But he was talking about how it's a short-term problem because we have built and structured our organizations in a way that our senior most leaders are never there for very long. Our senior leaders are there for short windows of just a few years, and so they are concentrated on getting the stock price to go up over their tenure, and they're not concerned with 15, 20 years. They're concerned with 2 or 3 years.
Very
And
good.
so if my window is 2 or 3 years, absolutely, I see the benefit in dumping my junior engineers because I don't have to worry about what happens when
Nope.
there's a gap.
Nope.
I'm worried about the next 2 or 3 years. And when that gap surfaces, hey, I'm on to someone else. I'm on to
Absolutely.
my next gig. And now that's some other guy's problem,
Well, I
right?
think
That's not my problem.
at that team level, a question for you, Brian, and because this is partly what I'm after in the nucleus of this is how much, from your experience in the companies you've worked with, whether that's in the training classes or when you're coaching, how much do you feel, percentage wise, the teams truly had ownership of how they work and they knew they could just go and change things? I mean, I have seen teams like they would change the operating system they would use. Like this one works better. Like that was at a startup, or I just need to go out and buy this equipment or whatever that might be. Or and contrast that with number of teams that you felt like it's just kind of an order taker. Just tell me what you want. I know, but we'd like your ideas. That just tell me what you want, right? For whatever reason, I don't want to be wrong. What have you seen out there? Because I think this is kind of inherent in the problem of if that's a lot of people, then we're asking them to think different about AI. But if they're still don't have a sense of ownership, they feel like they're just acting like owner takers. I think that might be a problem. But what have you seen in your experience, percentage
Yeah,
wise?
no, I agree with you. It's a rare thing, right? It's a rare thing when the team has the agency to make the changes that they feel necessary to actually improve and get faster and deliver better quality and all that stuff. It's sort of, I hate to go this far back, but I have to draw the quote from Ronald Reagan, the whole trust but verify kind of thing. And I think that there's that delicate teeter-totter kind of thing with
Yeah,
that
sure.
scale of trust and verify that I think leaders are always wrestling with, that they know, and I think we as leaders know we should be trusting our teams, but you brought accountability, and we're accountable, right? We're accountable to deliver these things, and we want to trust them, but we also need some level of verification so that we make sure we're on target, we're on track, everything else. And I think that's the major struggle.
Right. Now, and I think that's so for me, it's almost like it's a problem that's now been stacked or exponentially gotten problematic. So add to that what you've seen, the number of leaders who really fundamentally understood Agile. And I pulled plenty of people in the leadership class, and it is consistent that they would say the leaders on a scale of 1 to 10 understand maybe 4.5. Yet, how much would the leader say they understand about Agile was like an 8 or 9, or some people would say 12 out of 10. So the problem is they didn't understand Agile. Now you throw on AI. I think that I have not seen that problem changes, that they fundamentally understand are using it, but they want everyone else to use it. So now how do they lead? Agile is one thing because it changes the process. This is almost like it makes you question the fundamental concept like team, yet they can't lead them because they don't even understand AI, much less Agile. So shifting. So here's an example that I thought was really profound. A client had said, we want to do some advanced AI. Great. I'd even walk back through. This is what I would recommend. And we're going through it. And I could tell right away. And one of my coaches was pairing. I'm like slacking behind the scenes, like, this isn't looking good. Because what they're asking for was super advanced stuff, like, show us how AI can give us a dashboard and full predictability for all of our projects. I'm like, what? that's way beyond what we normally do. Normally, like just like how to set tone, maybe start talking about skills and agents, whatever. And so finally, I just stopped and talked to the head of the person that called me, and I said, I'm puzzled at the level of questions you're asking. So where's this coming from? And she's like, well, we're the AI services group. Right. So they're providing services on how to leverage and maximize AI for all these other groups. And I just stopped. Now think about this for a moment, because this is coming from our perspective. But in my mind, and they've existed for 5 years, in my mind, like, why are you coming to me for answers then if you know the power of AI? Like, am I smarter than Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini all put together? But by no means. So what I saw in that moment is you still have this mentality of, I just want a solution. To your point, I don't understand the fundamental principles underneath this, which is AI can do anything I need, but they're still in this box of, I need solutions to give off to other people. Now, even when I shared that, they weren't clocking it. And the feedback that came back at the end of the class, you could tell a couple of people did clock it, but like, why are we coming for the answers? So that's one example of the problem that I've seen. The other similar problem is that we want them to use AI and learn, but we don't even give them time to do that. So now if I'm reduced to, I need to use something, it's going to be like if we were to graph that Stacy matrix, it's going to be your simple, straightforward, can I have it write my email for me? And we see this limit. Those numbers you were sharing earlier about AI's adoption don't look much different than last year. And people are saying, they're starting to see now, the limiter isn't AI, the limiter is these humans. And to your point, we're not that smart about the system of work. Right? Going back to people learning Agile and the principles underneath, those that got it was incredible. Now we're at AI, which I think is much bigger challenge to the fundamental principles of how we work in teams. But without understanding, without a sense of, I'm a team has ownership, I'm a team that's not an order taker, we're empowered truly, I think you have a very small percentage. And I'm not quite sure, how do you move them forward outside of podcasts like yours, conversations, training, et cetera. But I'm not seeing a lot of this out there. Have the fundamental thinking to say, like, no, we can, what's our solution at my company versus yours? I'm sure it'll look different, but we got the tools we need to figure out. They're like, no, just make an agent, spin it up, replace a person, cut costs, just like you're saying. And I think they're going to hit that ceiling. If they haven't already hit the ceiling, they're just going to just cruise along in that. And I don't even think that they're aware. They don't know that they don't know that. And that's the
Yeah,
problem.
I agree. Well, and I think one of the fundamental sort of problems that I think is inherent in the way in the era that we're in right now. In the Scrum world, you hear people saying things like, "Can AI replace my Scrum Master? Can AI replace a product owner?" Or obviously, can it replace a developer or a
Oh,
junior developer if you're not in Scrum, right? There's all these questions about, can it do this? Can it be this person? And I think that's fundamentally flawed. I think that when you start coming at it from, here's how we do things right now, can I take this piece out and plug AI in and have AI replicate this human? I think that's a flawed approach. I think that would be similar to, I've thought about this kind of as an analogy. When the internal combustion engine was invented, people didn't say, can we build a horse with a combustion engine? Can we make, with four legs that run along, and can I crack the whip over the horse? Like,
make
that
the
would
legs
be
move
the
faster, right?
right. That would be like the equivalent to today. Is, it seems like what we're doing is we're taking this technology, this tool, and saying, all right, well, here's how we do things today. So what components or pieces do I pluck out and put in AI, when AI is not meant to do that? AI is not designed or built. It doesn't excel at replacing a human. It excels at doing certain things. And as you said, that requires a fundamental reassessment of the entire process from end to end, to say, here's the problem, here's the solution. How do we get from A to B? Now that this new tool is in place, we need to reassess what the team looks like. We need to reassess what people do, what things. We need to reassess the task along the way, and what task an AI can do, not what person an AI can be.
There you go. Right. So for us, this is a recent experience, and I was just discussing it with one of our teammates yesterday, and she's done great on digging into AI, leveraging AI, et cetera. Some of that was my prompting from her, because we meet regularly, but we have our mobbing sessions where we get together, we tackle different problems intentionally with AI. We still have our regular meetings for like operations, et cetera. One thing that shifted my thinking, and I've been watching this since ChatGPT really hit the scene. I was aware of machine learning and AI before that, but like, well, I don't see how that, because it wasn't generative yet, but now, so I feel like I've been around this for long enough to know better, but I still don't know better. I wasn't really seeing the power of AI until this year when I said, I will not start any task anymore without first looking and saying, can AI do help with this in some way? And it really opened my eyes to the power of AI. And that started to shift towards a team of like, let's all work together to say, there's something in our backlog we need to do. Let's take a look if AI can do that. Or not. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. Sometimes we simply learn and that's fine. But for her, one of the things I was talking to her is I'm giving like, here's the things we need to get done. And she has all the back office stuff, things on the website, accounting, et cetera. I just paused and said, what do you, where do you put all these items when I'm asking like, hey, see if you can look into this. She goes, well, and she kind of paused. She's like, well, I write them down. So, okay, before we meet next week, I want you to try vibe coding and see if you can build something that would do that for you. Now, she's already been in the mobbing session. We're seeing what we've been doing, but she came back in a week with like a very lightweight equivalent of Trello. And since then has done more with it. And now I'm honest, now she doesn't ask, she just knows. I'm going to show you the newer features I add to help her, including like, well, this is a task I need to do every day, like, something for YouTube. She moves it to done. It knows it pops back in the next day. Right. Or it could be weekly. What day of the week do you want to pop in? Everything's color coded. I mean, it's the best tool I've seen for, I like it more than mine. I'm even thinking, I could license this from her, but that's an example of that. But one of those tasks was, web pages when people are looking for stuff on our site, do we have it or not? And now we just have an agent running our SEO analysis, right? So I don't have to do that. Great. It gives us an analysis that I trust good enough. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's better than waiting on me for 6 weeks to come around to it. So now it makes it. Now here's where we had to change how we work. It said, you don't have a page for this particular class. Okay, fine. So I talk with the other person I pair with on my team when we deliver that class and hey, we need a page for this, right? And he sits and thinks about it. He comes up with ideas. He runs those by me. We meet in a week and then he gets verification, right? Then it's another week or two as he uses AI. He goes to Claude saying, can you make a page, whatever, but it doesn't match ours exactly, right? So, but in the end, it was 3 weeks before we finally had something to put on the website. And I was just dying inside. Like, I know that's not necessary. So the shift was, in this case, Jessica, I'm saying like, you just draft them and send them us for review, but call it good. And all I'm looking for is it factually incorrect. So when it says like Scott is trained, NASA astronauts, or we're like, no, that's actually not true. It'll still make up stuff. So we do check that. But I'm back to good enough is good enough. And now it's done really in just a few days. We are even talking to the team of our mobbing session should be the output of that is the product, almost like it's a 1 hour sprint. We're going to pull in a user story and knock it out. But this idea that we're still working, like, let's talk to each other and review, we should collaborate. But those delays were killing us. And it wasn't necessary for the value, but it took us a few cycles like this isn't working. And now we just ran the SEO report again, like, yep, it sees what we've done, but that was all in less than a week compared to say 3 weeks or more. So this idea of teams and how we do it, but that's stopping and saying, I don't think we need to do it this way. If team members aren't empowered to do this, and this might be a takeaway for the people listening, maybe that retrospective is actually pause and say, how do we think it's best to use AI, balancing short-term and long-term, and let's run some experiments on that. Because I think right now they just run blindly, use AI as much as you can, and all sorts of problems will come downstream, to your point, depending on leadership. But I encourage them to have that sense of ownership. Let's reflect on this and let's give your voices to that. Is everyone feeling good? Like the Spotify team health check. Am I having fun? Is this enjoyable? If I'm being left behind as a team member, I'd be ready, like, hey, I'm part of the team and it kind of stinks that you guys are doing amazing stuff. I just hear bits and pieces and I'm not a part of that, right? But let's refactor a bit of that because you're right. We fundamentally changed this in much bigger ways than I think most people are thinking. But if we don't actually stop and evaluate, which I think most don't, they're just going to run at 120 miles an hour on that horse with the combustion engine and then this is going to explode, right? That's a problem. But rethink all of that. And your car metaphor is a really good one. It's fundamentally different. It's going to look different. I don't know what it looks like exactly. So I've just had our experiences and what I've seen, but I know it's radically different for sure.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, Scott, we're at our time, so thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you being willing to jump in here early on in this new podcast and
Always
share your
good.
thoughts with us.
I always enjoy it, Brian, with you. Always a pleasure. And I do it for the fun. I'm glad it's a good thing we're talking about if people get value, I hope so. But yeah, thank you for having me on. Really a pleasure.
Absolutely. Wasn't Scott great? I just love having Scott on. If you didn't listen to the last podcast, the Agile Mentors podcast, I had him on multiple times, and I really appreciate his insights. We're kind of similar thinkers, and kind of every time I have a conversation with him, we kind of approach things from a different way and help each other re-examine some of these topics. So big thanks to Scott Dunn. I'll put links to Scott and his company in our show notes in case you want to follow him. Scott has his own podcast as well, so you can maybe tag on to what he's doing there. We appreciate you guys joining in early on in this People Over Prompts podcast. And, I said this in the first episode, but this is not an anti-AI podcast at all. Please don't think that title means for some reason that we're going to be anti-AI. No, we're pro-AI. We think that AI is a good tool. And as I said in the episode, is fundamentally changing how we approach work. But we just want to have the conversations and talk about it in a real way. We're trying to be transparent about what's really going on at the team level and how this is going to change things. So that's kind of the whole point. That's the purpose of this. Here's our ask from you. If you like this, if this topic interests you, and you're not sure if there's another thing like this, or there's people are kind of giving you tips and tricks on AI, but this isn't really that. It's kind of handling it from a new area. If you know other people who would be interested in this, my ask from you is, if you wouldn't mind, tell a friend, tell a coworker, tell someone else. We're new, and we're not advertising anywhere. So we want to spread by word of mouth. We want you to tell people that you work with, people that are friends of yours. If you know people that really dig this topic and are into it, just reach out and say, hey, give it a shot. Give this new podcast a shot. I think they're onto something, and I think this is something that might grow into a really interesting area. So that's my ask for you. Also, obviously, subscribe to this. That's, for a new podcast, that's just vital. We've got to get our subscriptions up so the people, when they search for this topic, can find us. And that doesn't cost you anything. It's just a way that you can help us. So I know it takes a little time, but that's my other ask from you is if you can take the extra minute or so to just do that, to make sure you like or subscribe to us in whatever podcasting platform you use on a regular basis. That really does help. That really does help us get found by new listeners. So that's my appeal to you as well. We're going to try to release this as often as we can. So, that will keep this new in your inbox. We also would love to hear more from you. So we'd like you to be able to send us an email. You can send me an email directly at brian@agilityevolved.com. That's my business and my direct email. So send me an email. It's Brian with an I. So brian@agilityevolved.com. If you have any kind of suggestions for topics, areas you want us to cover, or you might know someone who would be a really good guest for us, my only request for you is, if you send a guest suggestion, if you can send any kind of a link to that person speaking somewhere else, that's usually really helpful in vetting new people to come on the show. So we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have your ideas and your topics on here. I always try to make the podcast I work on not owned by me, but owned by the listeners. So you point me in the right direction, and I will do my best to give you the podcast that you want here from us. So I hope you stay connected with us. I hope you stay on board with us. We're going to go in a lot of different areas, and it's going to be exciting. So stick around. This conversation is just starting. But thank you for joining us on our second episode of People Over Prompts podcast. Talk to you next time.